Уважаемые коллеги,
Dear friends, distinguished colleagues, it is with great satisfaction that I am addressing you from Moscow. As we understand, we realize that there is a great potential that we have as an organization in convening remotely our General Assembly. Our organization is one of the few that maintains its momentum and contributes its might in enhancing relationships of friendship, financial, and other relations. It is a great success for an organization, and I want to express my gratitude to all those who have contributed to the organizing and holding alive our activities. Our assembly is taking place in difficult times, full of challenges. There are conditions of tension in the Ukraine, Montenegro, and elsewhere. However, we need to carry on with our work, the work that we have been doing for 27 years, and I am convinced that we will manage as a whole and as separate countries. We wanted to have a meeting in Brussels on the subject of parliamentarism and religious faith, and then we wanted to hold our meeting on Crete on the subject of the future of the world, the future of Europe after the pandemic. It is important to find measures including vaccination and prophylaxis. It is that will probably safeguard us against the pandemic. We consider that twice or three times a year we need to convene meetings in order to keep in touch and be able to resolve our problems. We are members of a big family that tends to our actions and is part and parcel of the Orthodox tradition. I would like to say that we need to enlarge sources of information for our organization and respective parliaments. In fact, we are a model of mutual trust, love, and tolerance, and I think that the work of all our committees, cultural and so on committees, must be intensified, especially when it comes to crucial subjects. We are going to elect our new bodies in this assembly, and I would like to use this opportunity in order to express on behalf of the State Duma, myself personally, the Senate, I would like on behalf of them all to thank the Secretary General, Mr. Michailidis, who is stepping down from his position as General Secretary, and I feel confident that you, who represent dozens of parliaments the world over, will support our positions. If we look back to the past, we will remember how well, how successfully we managed to resolve problems in the past. We are a model for making compromises and consensus in order to find the optimal solution. So I would like now to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Athanasios Bouras, representing the Hellenic Parliament, the organizer of today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear President of the General Assembly of the I.A.O., Honorable Secretary General of the I.A.O., dear members of the I.A.O., ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It is a very special
Colleagues, it is my pleasure to greet the work of the 27th General Assembly of the I.A.O., which is taking place in hard times for the whole of the world, owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year and the decade now beginning will be marked in history and on the humanitarian level internationally by this health issue. This crisis came to remind us of our vulnerability as living beings of an ecosystem. Of course, this is not the first or the last time that humanity experiences such a deadly pandemic. However, the level of our empirical knowledge in combination with our progress on the scientific and technological levels give us the opportunity to manage rationally and justly such a situation. The COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on public health, on everyday life, on interpersonal relations, on our very nature show very clearly the path that we need to select in order to find the right strategy for the future. Maybe this conjuncture happened in order to overthrow strategies of the past, strategies that we used to draw for the future economy, for society and politics. This is a deadly virus that contaminates very quickly, very easily, without distinguishing between races, religions, color, gender, social class, or educational level or nationality. So this virus came to convert certainty and arrogance in certain cases of well-organized states to insecurity, to wrong decisions, to hasty reactions in unmapped waters. Governments, under the pressure of speed by the pandemic, found themselves numbed in the beginning, and they started slowly taking into consideration that they had to respond very quickly. For the first time, they did realize that they had to leave aside differences or conflicts or class differences and to focus exclusively to the preservation of life, to sustainable development and coexistence between society and nature. Governments, and like every authority, be it political or religious, are called upon to think alike and to turn towards a peaceful plan for the future. We now need to walk hand in hand on a platform of common acceptance, of universal agreement in order to move during this century towards a peaceful, sustainable trip of survival and well-being. Parliamentarism, that is democracy as it is represented by parliaments, and our Interparliamentary Assembly can abundantly work and contribute to this plan and endeavor. By virtue of its members and representatives the world over, it may keep reminding and asking with persistence but also patiently and stably the intensification of efforts towards medical research, different treatments, a holistic approach for the rehabilitation of physical and psychosocial health of people in the world. In fact, there is no crisis that the humanity will not overcome by using compassion. It is vital to have international collaboration in order to achieve all the above mentioned. And I'm not referring exclusively to an intergovernmental collaboration. I am referring mainly to the parliamentary diplomacy that is exercised by national parliaments, either on a multilateral basis or even on an institutional one. One, for instance, subject is how to manage our future in the post-COVID era. I would like to seize this opportunity in order to congratulate you for the adjustability of your organization, which never interrupted its activities, but following suit from the Hellenic Parliament, it continued to work by, of course, adjusting itself to measures and complying fully with health protocols as devised by the competent national health authorities. There is a subject that was put into the agenda of the parliamentary, of course, diplomacy, and I am referring to no other but to the inadmissible behavior of Turkey vis-à-vis a symbol, not only for Orthodoxy, but also for the world, for the Christian world. And I'm referring to the Church of Saint Sophia, which was converted to a mosque by virtue of a unilateral decision taken by the Turkish authorities, bypassing the competent international institution of UNESCO. We, our organization, reacted immediately by diplomatic moves and communicated in every and any direction the need to raise awareness and to denounce this challenge by Turkey. Our country is and has always been in favor of maintaining communication channels and productive dialogue. There can be no solution in a regime of aggressiveness or threats. With these few words, I would like to congratulate you again for your stance to date in your work and in the promotion of independent parliamentarism, and wish you success to the proceedings of your very special General Assembly this year. The Assembly I declare open.
Thank you very much. Dear Athanasios Bouras, I would now like to read out the address sent by the President of the State Duma, Mr. Volodin Vyacheslav. Dear friends, colleagues, and guests to the 27th General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, allow me to address all participants. You are going to discuss extremely important topics. You shall define your planning for the future, and I'm sure these activities are for the benefit of all participating countries. It's extremely important for everyone to tap the huge potential of interparliamentary diplomacy that aims at preserving a common cultural heritage, collaboration among peoples who have the same spiritual background. The I.A.O. is an international platform which has major resources for cooperation to the benefit of people and strengthening of the international and interreligious peace and consensus. So I wish the best to your works, every success. With all respect, Volodin. And now, dear friends, I would like to give the floor to representatives from international organizations who have joined their efforts to our organization. So first, the President of the Interparliamentary Union, Gabriela Cuevas Barron.
Mr. President, distinguished parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is a pleasure and an honor for me to address the opening of the 27th General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. I thank you, President Gavrilov and Secretary General Michaeladis, for extending an invitation to the Interparliamentary Union. We convene as the world struggles with unprecedented challenges. A health emergency of a magnitude the world has not witnessed in over a century, looming economic and financial crisis, growing inequality and poverty, the increasingly devastating effects of climate change, new and emerging threats to international peace and security, and weak governance. Above all, we are witnessing a precipitous decline of democracy. Urgent, concerted action is needed, and parliamentarians and parliaments have a critically important role to play. Just a few weeks ago, I was privileged to chair the proceedings of the virtual session of the 5th World Conference of Speakers of Parliament. Through that conference, over 150 of the world's top legislators joined forces to examine the main challenges facing our global community and set forth a roadmap for robust parliamentary action on multiple fronts, including youth empowerment, gender equality, democratic governance, sustainable development, climate change, inclusive economies, science and technology, counterterrorism. The conference concluded with a strong political declaration on parliamentary leadership for more effective multilateralism that delivers peace and sustainable development for the people and the planet. I very much hope that we can all work together to turn this vision into reality. At the end, that's the most important duty of us as parliamentarians committed to parliamentary diplomacy, to be able to translate international commitments into local realities and local solutions for the people that we represent. The call for unity, progress, and a robust response is also reflected in this year's UN General Assembly resolution on the interaction between the United Nations, national parliaments, and the IPU. From the role of women and youth, to the critical work of Parliament, to the need for parliaments and governments to coordinate the response to COVID-19, the resolution captures the issues of today and calls for action to ensure a better tomorrow. We cannot take democracy, we cannot take human rights for granted. This pandemic is becoming a threat in many different fields. As I mentioned, of course, in terms of health, but also as economic crisis. But we are also seeing an increase in violence against women, in inequalities, in children that are not able to attend school because it is virtual and they don't have computers or Wi-Fi access. We, as parliamentary leaders, must answer this call if we are to maintain parliaments as institutions essential for democracy and also for development and inclusion. We must ensure that parliaments are at the forefront of efforts to accelerate the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. This has to be a reality. Only 20% of the world speakers of parliament are women. But if we take a look to what's happening with heads of state or government, the percentage goes only to about 7%. This is equally true for young people, with more than half of the world's population under 30 years old of age, but only 2% of MPs under 30. We must energetically promote the inclusion of more young people in political decision making for the future because the future belongs to them. As parliamentarians, channels for the voice of the people, we have an indispensable role in building a society that is people centered, where the dignity and the well being of all are preserved, and where no one is left behind. We must tap into the huge potential of parliamentary diplomacy and interparliamentary cooperation to forge stronger links of engagement and cooperation. The IPU greatly values its ties with the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy and other organizations. Building on our shared work to promote intercultural and interfaith dialogue, we look forward to productive collaboration in the months and years to come. Sometimes we believe that religions are a difference within humanity, but we have a lot of things and different issues to be divided. But what we need to learn is that when it comes to religion, when it comes to the best practices in our work, it is only because we are trying to look for solutions and we're trying to look for the best for humanity, to recover the best values. And that includes, of course, true respect and promotion on human rights. Let us harness the best of the virtual world, embodied in events like this one and others that we have concluded recently, in order to connect with each other and build a resilient, just, prosperous, and inclusive future. It is not very clear how long these virtual meetings are going to be with us. Perhaps we need to adapt more, but this is also an opportunity to be more inclusive, more transparent, to communicate in a bigger way how we're working and why parliamentary diplomacy is so important for understanding, for creating agreements, for translating international commitments into national solutions. Finally, Mr. President and Mr. Secretary General, I wish you and the participants a fruitful 27th I.O.A. General Assembly, and I look forward to the successful outcome of this important virtual parliamentary event. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Да, спасибо большое за приветствие. И я также приветствую всех представителей всех парламентов, участников МАП к нашей Генеральной Ассамблее.
I should like to greet all representatives of parliaments. We have them all apart from Iran. So I would like to address you and ask you to hear the address by the President of the Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Roger Nkodo Dang. If I may, we shall ask our Secretariat to allow us to hear instead Mr. Karim Darwish, the President of the Parliamentary Assembly for the Mediterranean, There is a written message by the President that has been tabled. Thank you. Let us continue. President, the message has been handed to the Secretariat. Is the President listening?
Σας είπα να έχουμε γραμμή με το Maximo. Μόνιμο. Να περάσει στο μήνυμα του Οικουμενικού Πατριάρχη.
Okay, let us hear the message of His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch. Apologies for this. Our colleagues from Africa and the Mediterranean will speak later, so we shall give the floor to His Eminence, Metropolitan of Laodicea, for the reading of the address by His All Holiness, the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. To the attention of their excellencies, Mr. Gavrilov and Dr. Michailidis, of both in the presidium of the I.A.O. I want to send my blessings to you all. It is my great pleasure to address this internetic 27th General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. The raging pandemic of the new coronavirus, COVID-19, continues to cause unprecedented health problems. It causes serious malfunctioning into the social and financial life and to our space, the space of the church. Faced with these hard conditions, the Church continues to provide its Christian witness by means of both words and deeds, supports those who are more in need, helps those who are ill and their families, and calls upon the faithful to comply with the measures for their own protection and that of public health. These measures do not affect our faith or our traditions because they are not the decisions against the Orthodox Church. They are measures in order to protect us men who are made of flesh and live in this world only temporarily. In the midst of this pandemic, we experienced the conversion of Saint Sophia and Moni Horas into mosques, two magnificent Christian monuments that used to work as museums, and they were symbols of peaceful coexistence and dialogue between Christianity and Islam. From now on, they will be used exclusively by the Muslims as places of prayer. We are fully aware of the magnitude of spiritual and cultural heritage that we guard as the apple of our eye, and as such we persist in calling this conversion both untimely and improper, and we declare with a lot of courage that similar events will not affect negatively our trust in the power and the future of interreligious dialogue, and that we will continue to struggle for peace and conciliation. The Church does not live for itself alone. Its whole life is the personification of God's love for human. And the Church believes that love is not that we loved God, but the fact that He loved us. This is a good witness that is always offered by the Church when we are faced with hardships and threats for man and his God-given freedom. Over the last decades, humanity is experiencing a crisis in the field of solidarity. This lack of solidarity has caused major social problems and financial upturns. And it is in the face of this crisis that the Orthodox Church has answered by putting forth a civilization of solidarity, solidarity that belongs to the very core of its ethos. And the Orthodox faithful person does not claim rights for himself, but sees himself as part of a network of love and always surpassing himself. Church solidarity does not only refer to our relationship with our next person, but to the wider social framework. It resists anti-personalistic forces that turn man into a consuming unit. And the Church is always fighting in order to bring about freedom, equality, and brotherhood, by not forgetting the vital needs for man. There are many who claim that in this manner the Church becomes secularized, that its action becomes entangled in the ambiguity of things human. Those who claim that seem to ignore that social and financial developments touch man to his very core, and that the human person is the central point of reference of church ministry. And as the saying goes, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. In fact, the Church has always worked in that manner and never forgot that man needs bread, even though man shall not live on bread alone. With these few thoughts and sending my blessings to you on the occasion of your 27th General Assembly of the I.A.O, and reminding the distinguished members of this assembly that orthodoxy in all its dimensions must always act as a positive challenge for the world, for the persons, for the societies and institutions. And in saying so, I would like to send you my blessings and wish for the grace and mercy of the Almighty God on you.
Напомню, что наша ассамблея приняла общее консолидированное заявление по поводу сохранения храма Святой Софии так же, как наши парламенты, также приняли такие заявления.
There has been a unanimous decision for the preservation of the religious character of Hagia Sophia by several parliaments. And now I would like to give the floor for reading the message from the Patriarch of Alexandria. To His Eminence, Metropolitan of Zambia, John. Honorable President of the General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, Secretary General of the I.A.O, honorable members of Parliament making up the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy, may peace and blessings come upon you from Jesus Christ. Undoubtedly, the infectious disease of the coronavirus spread all over the world has brought dramatic changes in the economic, social and spiritual life of people who were faced with a huge reversal of and upheaval in their daily life. The precious good of health was seriously threatened. Labor relations were reversed, and the living standards of many people collapsed, while the free and unobstructed worship of God was placed under suffocating restrictions. The Orthodox Church, complying with the recommendations of the experts from the very start, has adopted measures to protect the human life, at the same time praying day and night for the fast elimination of this evil. With the grace of God, the pandemic will go by, will be overcome sooner or later. However, the consequences and all those reversals and changes will amend the European and the global world, which is heading to unknown and uncharted waters. So the ancient Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa and our modesty in person is greatly concerned and worrying about the unknown future and the fortune of the African continent and the whole mankind. However, being convinced that the sorrow ends up with peace, with patience and hope, and the love of God is in our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us according to the words of Paul. We cannot be in despair. We cannot get disappointed. And in parallel, in a sense of responsibility and in spirit of modesty, we urge all people, especially the leaders, to pray, to be alert and redefine the attitude in life and in state. Unfortunately, the destruction of the balance in the ecosystem, the irrational exploitation of the planet, and the general behavior of man towards the environment are not irrelevant to the sufferings and evils that we are experiencing currently. Your assembly is an excellent opportunity to elaborate on these concerns, and it can be a great opportunity for your countries to take specific action, to take initiatives inspired by the spirit and the views of the Orthodox tradition. So with fatherly wishes, we bless your assembly and send our patriarchal wishes, the Pope of Alexandria and all Africa, Theodore II. At this point, I would like to announce to the plenary of the General Assembly of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy that according to the respected orders of His Beatitude Pope and Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa, Theodore II, I was authorized to present to the outgoing Secretary General of our organization, Mr. Andreas Michailidis, the Grand Cross of Apostle and Evangelist Mark. This Grand Cross of Apostle and Evangelist Mark is presented by the ancient Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa to eminent figures serving the mankind and the church and the ancient throne for the needs of the African church. So the presentation of this Grand Cross of Apostle Mark to Mr. Michailidis is an acknowledgement of his contribution in the humanitarian and missionary work of the Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa. During his term in office as the Secretary General of the I.A.O, he has served with passion and interest and always with respect in the institutional role, the goal of developing the Christian populations in Africa, as it was shown in his recent initiative for building a health ward in the Hospital of Africa. So on behalf of the Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa, I would like to thank him warmly for his love and wish he continues his hard work as a Member of Parliament. So honoring the Secretary General of the I.A.O, we are presenting the Grand Cross of Apostle and Evangelist Mark as a documentation of blessings. Alexandria, 17th of September, 2020.
Axios. Да. Дорогие друзья, я хотел бы поблагодарить Высокопреосвященство
Distinguished friends, I would like to thank His Eminence Metropolitan of Zambia, John, for all the indefatigable efforts that he has made over the years for the I.A.O. And now I shall give the floor to Leonidas, who is going to read out the message by the Patriarch of Moscow and all Russia, Kirill. Good morning. Distinguished participants, President Mr. Gavrilov, Honorable Mr. Andreas Michailidis, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, allow me to read out to you the message by the Patriarch of Moscow and all Russia, Kirill. I would like to greet all of you, members of parliament, of national parliaments, representatives of the churches, state and public officials that have gathered today in order to take part in this year's General Assembly. The choice of the subject is very apt, as it is in the midst of the pandemic of COVID-19 that showed us that the incomprehensible divine plan may direct even sad events for the good of man, helping him to discover the better qualities of his soul. It is unity against the division that the people needs in order to overcome the impact of this pandemic. Unfortunately, there is no such unity. It has been suffering over the last years, as shown by the recent events of the Ukraine. The legitimation of this division that was attempted in this country did not contribute to unity, but on the contrary, caused a deep wound in universal orthodoxy. Division has resulted in making us understand that we cannot always give the same single answer to the challenges of the modern times. There are many Orthodox peoples that remain abandoned in Turkey and in the northern part of Cyprus, and this after the conversion of Saint Sophia into a mosque. The faithful in Montenegro, where division is encouraged by the authorities, march massively by using the motto that we will not abandon our holy shrines. The efforts to revise the status quo become are there in the holy city of Jerusalem. A horrible explosion in Beirut has caused the people to lose lives, temples, hospitals, schools, and homes. In Syria, there is going to be a huge change by the return of the immigrants, the refugees, and the revival of destroyed churches and monasteries. So unity is what we need. We need it on a solid, regular basis, and we need mutual respect and mutual recognition of historical tradition. We need to have to pray in order to be able to overcome all the challenges. I would like to thank you all, dear friends, for your participation. We have 21 delegations in this assembly, one of the most numerous representations that we have ever had in our assemblies. And now I shall give the floor to the Secretary General, Dr. Andreas Michailidis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to address in my turn and to welcome all participants. I wish to thank cordially the participants and the Metropolitan and all those who have read out the messages from the primates of our church and from the Ecumenical Patriarch. I also wish to thank representatives of parliaments who have greeted our General Assembly. And we just received a greeting message from the President of the European Council, the European Parliament, excuse me, Mr. Sassoli, who says,
Secretary General Mikhailidis, I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to the 27th Annual General Assembly. Unfortunately, due to previously scheduled institutional commitments, I will not be able to join, but I would like to express my most sincere wishes to you and to the whole Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. Hoping to meet you on another occasion. Best regards, David Maria Sassoli. Αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι,
so, dear colleagues, distinguished participants and guests, welcome to the works of the 27th General Assembly, the first one over the history of our organization, which is an online, a virtual General Assembly in the context of the measures for preventing the spread of pandemic COVID-19. At this point, allow me to welcome the most active presence of parliamentary delegations from Belarus, Northern Macedonia, Ukraine, and Bosnia to the works of our organization. Of course, I must admit that I am quite embarrassed to hold this General Assembly without the physical presence of everyone. But I also wish to express my admiration for the adaptiveness, actually, and flexibility of our organization, being able to adapt it to the requirements of our contemporary social reality shaped after the onset of this pandemic. The threat against the good of human health in the whole world has brought about our self-criticism for the world that we have built so far, and it has become a springboard to display the weaknesses of our globalized society. So in a period of global upset where multilateralism and the model of global governance and cooperation is being challenged and disputed because states are folding within their national shell. Actually, in this period, we should pursue a reform of globalization in order to bring to the center the redesign of global and regional development and economy based on the ecumenical values and principles of the mankind. The pandemic has actually highlighted the gaps in and the deficits in democratic governance, especially in the case of authoritarian regimes, which have exploited the health crisis in order to concentrate more powers and diverge from the protection of human rights. These were moves towards totalitarianism, which go against any concept of public interest. So the pandemic has allowed to examine the reflexes of cross-border collaboration on the regional and global level, both in the European arena, but also worldwide. International organizations driven by the EU and the WHO, have worked uninterruptedly to face the challenges of the coronavirus. Unfortunately, certain governments have taken unilateral actions trying to reduce the effectiveness and efficiency of international institutions. The Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy has always been standing by the side of international initiatives and has always been supporting any effort for international collaboration and partnership. National and international parliaments, already from the first moments when this pandemic has broken out, have taken the necessary steps to protect parliamentarism and authentic representation of their peoples. So both on the level of rhetorics by adjusting the language of parliamentary discourse, but also on the level of practice, parliamentary institutions continued to produce parliamentary work, adopting the adequate practices and simplifying procedures with the assistance of new technologies. Moreover, the parliaments have assumed the essential role of information exchange and raising awareness among the public about all aspects of the negative effects of the pandemic on the national and international level by organizing online seminars, webinars, and conferences. Building of the future of Europe and the world in the post-COVID era will not be simple. It will be complicated. So we are invited to adapt ourselves to this new reality and assimilate the changes on the political, social, and economic level. At the same time, we are invited to redefine with all due seriousness the fundamental values and principles that will govern a new world that will be more fair and sustainable for future generations. So the pandemic gives us the chance to design positive corrective measures for the regeneration, the revival of the planet and the human race. Dear colleagues, concerning a report on the past activities of the I.A.O. For the period between our last General Assembly and today's General Assembly, allow me to point out the following. We carefully followed and recorded the political views expressed by parliaments or or parliamentary bodies, because we wanted to gather views and opinions in order to attribute a diverse dimension to the problems. So we have chosen views from the area of parliamentarism, so from PAM, also from the organized area of the Muslims, the Parliamentary Union of Islamic Conference member states, and from the area of the Church, the Conference of European Churches. In this context, we supported the letter sent to the world by the Organization of Episcopal Conferences of COMES, the Catholic Church in the European Union, as well as the joint declaration of the President of the above organization with the President of the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, SECAM, concerning the implementation of Christian values in building a better future for the post-COVID era. We have also taken the initiative to inform the Patriarch of Alexandria and all Africa about this development, and we urged him to send, on behalf of the Orthodox Church, a letter of support for this initiative. And we were very pleased to see that the Patriarchate of Alexandria and all Africa has responded immediately and sent a letter of congratulations to the Catholic brothers. And by this letter, he has designated His Eminence Metropolitan of Zambia, John, as a liaison of the I.A.O. with the Pan-African Parliament and with the role of the observer for the works of SECAM. And allow me here to thank warmly His Beatitude, the Pope of Alexandria and all Africa, Theodore, for this great honor of presenting the Grand Cross of the Apostle and Evangelist Mark to me. I consider that this is an honor to the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy and not to me personally. It's acknowledgement of the I.A.O. work. And let me remind once again our commitment, because we have undertaken a commitment in our General Assembly in Cairo in the presence of the President of the General Assembly, Mr. Gavrilov. So we were committed there to construct a ward in a room rather in this ward. And the relevant study will be submitted, and our international secretariat will examine this study on the first opportunity, and we are going to keep the promise that we have given to the Patriarch of Alexandria. With this opportunity, allow me also to thank cordially His Eminence Metropolitan of Zambia, John, our beloved brother and a colleague, I would say, in practice. We could call him a colleague. So we thank him for his contribution and support in all the work done on the African continent, but also in terms of our connections with the Patriarchate of Alexandria and the Pan-African Parliament. So in the course of this pandemic, we had to react in a coordinated manner, and we had to respond to the challenge against the Orthodox Christianity, but also the overall global civilization. And of course, I'm talking about the modification of the status of Hagia Sophia from a museum to a mosque by the Turkish authority. This was a unilateral action. It became a Muslim mosque. So this is a unilateral action which automatically and from the very start is a cultural desecration of the church and an obvious violation of European values as well as the international law. So we have issued a relevant announcement with the official views of our organization, which we have forwarded diplomatically to several states and international organizations. We also sent it to primates of the church. And our letter has been accepted positively, and now a whole group of same-thinking states and institutions has been set up, which are putting pressure on the Turkish authorities to recall, withdraw these measures. Of course, this initiative has also caused reactions on the Turkish side. So there has been complaints on the part of Turkish diplomacy about this initiative. There has been such an action in Athens. But and as it was normal, of course, a series of our activities have been cancelled or postponed. First of all, the meeting of our international secretariat and the iconography exhibition that had been scheduled for Milan. which is a city that suffered a lot from this disease, so this has been cancelled or postponed. We had also prepared some events with the Ambrosian Library. We had paid in advance hotels, technical infrastructure, restaurants. So instead of cancelling that, we decided to postpone the meeting of the International Secretariat for the 28th of October in the same city. Let's hope we can make it. Moreover, we cancelled our meeting with our Catholic friends from ICLN, the International Catholic Legislators Network, and the meeting between the delegations. However, we had a teleconference and we discussed certain issues. We also cancelled our visit to the Serbian Republic, Bosnia and Zagreb, Croatia. We cancelled all that. We also postponed our visit to Ethiopia, which is a visit that we had scheduled for Addis Ababa, the seat of the African Union, and we had also scheduled meetings with leaders of several committees in this organization, but all this has been cancelled. We attended the General Assembly of PAM, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, that convened in Athens from the 19th to the 21st of February. We had the chance to attend discussions on interesting topics, such as migration, the presence of migrants and refugees in the Mediterranean, and so on. As our colleague from Lithuania has informed us, we had a negative development. Mr. Irina Rozova has told us that the Committee for National Security and Defense and the Committee for International Affairs of the Parliament of the country does not consider the participation of Belarus in our organization to be necessary. We will try to correct that. And then in a neighboring country of the Baltic Sea, Finland, His Eminence Metropolitan Ambrosius, an old friend of the I.A.O, has invited us for next year, before Easter, to travel to Finland and organize an iconography exhibition there. We also cancelled our General Assembly in Brussels, and the conference that was to be held there with the subject parliamentarism and religious faith has also been cancelled. Unfortunately, this effort, of course, would be under the auspices of the European Parliament and its President, Mr. Sassoli. However, we are in touch with the President of the European Commission, Mrs. van der Leyen, and also the vice presidents of the two institutional organs of the European Union. So these events have been cancelled, and we shall see how we can restore our initiatives on these events. We also postponed the General Assembly that had been scheduled for Chania, Crete, because we have chosen Greece as a safe place for holding our General Assembly. And the Political Committee of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe would also be held there. Same period, but unfortunately both events were cancelled. Now we are going to publish the minutes of the international conference that was held in April 2018 in collaboration with the Parliament of Lebanon. The title was Unity in Diversity and the Basic Principles of Freedom for Christians and Muslims in the Middle East, because we consider that the minutes of this Parliamentary Dialogue Conference will be very relevant today. So the minutes will be published in 4 languages, English, Greek, Russian, and Arabic, and we hope that very soon this publication will be ready. And of course, also our bulletin It was published again this year with major difficulties, of course, because of the emergency measures. So as you must have seen, it has already been circulated. I guess you have received it in 4 languages again. The President has asked me to lead the discussion from now on for technical reasons, because there is a technical problem with the speakers. I mean, he doesn't have the list of speakers, and this is only a technical detail. So the President of our General Assembly, Mr. Gavrilov, has kindly asked me to moderate the discussion. So we will continue this dialogue from here. From Athens. We will moderate the dialogue from here. Mr. Simonian Alen, Vice Speaker of the Parliament of Armenia, has asked for the floor.
Mr. Kalafatis, member of the Greek delegation, has the floor. Please. Mr. Kalafatis, you may proceed. Thank you very much. President of the General Assembly, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I should like to greet all the participants to today's meeting, as well as the citizens and peoples represented in it, with the conviction that we can and must contribute to the tackling of challenges developing around us. And we want to assure you that we will not be just observers, but real fighters in the struggles for common values and ideals. It is a fact that the 27th General Assembly of the I.A.O. is taking place this year under very special, not to say unprecedented conditions for the country and for the world over. This coronavirus pandemic is restricting us. We cannot take place in numerous meetings and mingle a lot, because this is an invisible enemy. But we continue to bring to the fore the public health, the value of public health. We must never forget that this virus is in our midst and is nourished by complacency. At the same time, we are faced with a Turkish threat that turns against peace and stability of the region as a whole. It turns against the whole of the Western and civilized world, against Christianity and Orthodoxy. The recent decision by the Turkish state to turn into a mosque the eternal symbol of Orthodoxy, Saint Sophia, and its decision to convert the historic Moni Horas into a mosque similarly violates two symbols of Orthodoxy that were built as churches and are monuments of a world heritage. These two monuments, as His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch said, these two monuments express the ecumenical spirit of our faith and love. And it is an attack against intercultural and interreligious dialogue. This is a strategy that, as the General Assembly of I.A.O has said, revives strategies and practices that do not go hand in hand with the spirit of the 21st century. That is all for cooperation. No, so we need to do what we can in order to reverse the decisions of the Turkish state. We must not forget, we must not allow anybody to forget. We must align our voices towards the same direction. This issue is not only Greek, it's not only Euro-Turkish, it concerns the whole of the Christian civilized world. With these few thoughts, I should like to congratulate you because today's General Assembly is an opportunity for tightening of our bonds between our peoples, and it will allow us to place ourselves vis-à-vis the problems of our era and move fast as this is possible in order to respond to the great challenges of today and of tomorrow, always believing in the ideals that are expressed and promoted by the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy. Thank you, dear colleague. The President, Mr. Gavrilov, has asked for the floor. Sergei. I should like to confirm that I asked Mr. Michailidis, Andreas Michailidis, to coordinate, to chair the meeting and ask our technicians to create the link with those who wish to take the floor, and if they cannot express themselves orally, they should send us their papers in writing. I want to say that this whole General Assembly is being recorded, and as we all know, the recording is then sent to the participants. First of all, let me welcome the newly elected colleagues from Moldavia. And Mr. Burduza Petru will take the floor from the Republic of Moldavia. Colleague, you have the floor.
Να ανοίξουμε το μικρόφωνο σας, το μικρόφωνο σας.
His microphone is muted for the time being.
Το μικρόφωνο σας. Microphone. Open your microphone, please. Yes, okay.
Mr. Votsis is ready while our colleagues from Moldavia are fixing the technical issues. Angelos Votsis, greetings from Cyprus. We are all here trying to use technology in order to hold this General Assembly remotely. You know, dear Andreas, our appreciation, and we hope that we shall be able to speak in person. We are looking forward to it. This pandemic has brought us very close to one another in a paradoxical way. We continue our activities. Of course, we shall say a couple of words on your report in approving it. Now, concerning the bully of our region, we shall reiterate once more that Turkey continues to harass not only in the field of the well-known issues, Saint Sophia, which is a UNESCO historical monument, but it also, on a daily level, sends its boats and to harass us. And I think that the whole of the EU and other forces must call it back to order. We consider that Turkey has gone beyond the mark of tolerance. If Europe does not manage to stop this bully, problems will be further aggravated. These very few words in greeting our General Assembly, but we shall be around in case you need to contribute something more. Thank you, Angelos. Mr. Bouras has the floor. We need to congratulate him on his re-election. He's from Montenegro. Mr. Bouras is also a member of the Secretariat, of our Secretariat, the International Secretariat, and I want to say that we contributed to the struggle of the Montenegro people vis-à-vis this unacceptable legislation by the government concerning the property of the church there. So, dear colleague, you have the floor. There is no sound. No sound. You have to unmute your microphone.
Distinguished colleagues, it's a great pleasure for me to address you on behalf of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova, in a country which is linked and interconnected with Orthodoxy since antiquity. There are ancient churches and pilgrimage sites that are symbolic in our country. We are faced with major challenges, and in such times, we always turn to our spiritual fathers. There are pages in our history that concern religion. Our president calls Orthodoxy the foundation stone for the Republic of Moldova. And the main wealth of our country is our human resources, our people who are faithful in God. 94% of our people, based on our statistics, are Orthodox. This faith, the Orthodox faith, is in the blood, in the soul, in the heart of our people. The Orthodox prayers and the Orthodox rituals accompany all members of our society, from birth to death. In every house in Moldova, even in the poorest houses, there is an icon of the God, Virgin Mary, or Saint Nicholas. The president of the government, and the majority of MPs focus on Orthodox traditions and family traditions. So we had an international conference of families that was attended by representatives of families from several countries of the world. This year had been declared as the World Year for Families. Anyway, the major challenge that appears in front of all of us and the challenge that we need to overcome is the threat against church division, accompanied by the irresponsible politics of several countries. And sometimes politics interfere with the churches. So we condemn such actions and we support every effort to overcome such a crisis. Combined to the above, we would like to address the presence of the Orthodox world. The President of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Dandon, has taken the initiative for a meeting to be held among the heads of the neighboring churches in Moldova. So Moldova has made its choice. We are part of the Russian Church, and our spiritual father is His Eminence Patriarch Cyril of Moscow. Dear colleagues, in our country, the Orthodox are the majority of our people, and the society cannot ignore the will and the interests of this part of the population. We cannot be indifferent where destructive values are adopted, and when ideologies against the family are declared, and when it is attempted to separate parents from children. So having the mandate of our constituency, we have to combat such actions. No matter who is going to win the elections in the Republic of Moldova, dear colleagues, in the next years, we are convinced that they will be Orthodox people for whom family, religion, Orthodox values and principles are important. And I'm sure that Moldova will be among the brotherhoods of Orthodox peoples. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, dear colleague. If there are no other colleagues that have asked for the floor, Mr. Ungarev has asked, but we will ask him to speak a little later because he's going to have to speak also on the appointment of the new Secretary General. So I think we can go on with Mr. Sarakiotis for the report, financial report for professional reasons. He's in Thessaloniki and he's going to connect via Skype. John, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Michailidis, Secretary General. It was with great satisfaction that I heard your report. I had the honor and the pleasure to participate in this whole endeavor from in my quality as treasurer of the I.A.O. by receiving payments of contributions and proceeding to all the necessary payments for the activity activities of the International Secretariat. Therefore, I can have a very full picture of the gigantic effort made despite the pandemic. And I am very well aware of all the effort that was put in to this whole endeavor. Nobody ever gave the precedence to a state or partisan interest. The I.A.O. was always above everything. But let us see now the report. The role of this organization was, I think, very well described by the Secretary General. Therefore, our role, the financial role, is to support all the efforts made by the I.A.O. and which brought it to a state and made it possible for it to open its wings in all different directions. First information is that we were able to spend less than we budgeted it for. I don't know if this is necessarily good, but it is good for our treasure. Why did this happen? Because simply on account of the pandemic, we were not able to implement all the activities that we had planned for. The Milan International Conference on Parliamentarism and Religious Faith, and the General Assembly in Brussels, which was then supposed to take place on Crete, but again had to be postponed on account of the pandemic. And we hope that we shall have the possibility next year to reschedule these activities. We had budgeted €629,600 and we spent €463,360. I don't think that I will have to be very detailed because you have received all the necessary relevant documents. In this document, we have a very detailed account of the organization's expenses for the financial year 2019-2020. All legal documents are paraphed and kept in our archive. And of course, all of this is analytically given in the report by the chartered accountant that you have received electronically. So the grand total of payments was €463,360. And as the auditor says, all these expenses are accounted for by all the relevant legal documents. And the treasurer and the member of the financial committee signs everything before it is paid off. A couple of words on revenue from contributions, and the contributions paid are those of Russia, Cypriot Parliament, Bulgaria, Greece, Jordan, and for the first time of Serbia, Romania, and Armenia. And we are waiting for the contribution of Palestine. There is talk about the participation of the other parliaments. The overall amount that has been put together is €465,000, whereas the remaining amount in our treasury on the 31st of August of 2020 is $1,226,185.84 and $1,356. Payments were $463,306 euro, and the interest that was deposited on our account was 353 euro. As the chartered accountant mentions, everything is confirmed by the National Bank of Greece, and there is total agreement between accounts and of deposits in the bank, and there is consolidation between expenses and revenue of the I.A.O. In fact, there is no expenditure that takes place without the previous approval of the International Secretariat and the order and signature by the Secretary General, accompanied by all the legal necessary documents. Last year, we had budgeted expenses for 629,600 euros. According to the report, we have spent out of this amount 463,360 euro. You have all the relevant documents, and to save time, I don't think I need to go into every possible detail. We could say only that we were very close to the budget, and I would like to clarify that the difference that was found by the chartered accountant refers to sums that were the down payments for our activities in Milan and Crete. That is all I have to say for the time being, and I ask you to approve of this report and to rid me of every personal responsibility. Thank you very much, Mr. Sarakiotis. Thank you for all your model services. Mr. Poulaits and Mr. Myrianthous have asked for the floor. However, I would like to give the floor to the chairperson of the I.A.O. for the Financial Committee, Mr. Dmitry Vyatkin, so we can complete the report, the financial report, and then I shall give the floor to the other two colleagues. Thank you for this.
Thank you, dear colleague, Mr. Michailidis. Mr. Sarakiotis, our treasurer, the treasurer of our organization, has referred in detail to our financial report. Indeed, we had planned several events starting from January until today, but they were not held. Those events were cancelled for the well-known reasons. However, the expenses that we had planned were approved by our audit. So these audits reflect the activities of our organization from the plenary in Tbilisi until the events that were held with the participation of the members of our organization in January 2020. Therefore, all our gatherings, after that point, all our gatherings were held online, which involves lower cost than compared to the physical presence and live visits and travels. So the Financial Committee, according to our charter, oversees, has the responsibility and the competence to oversee the expenses and the capturing of the expenses in our financial documents. So we are calling the General Assembly to approve our financial report without any doubt and without any claim against the participants to this committee. Everything is accurate. We found no inaccuracy. And we also have Mr. Bourikos, who is undersigning our audit report. Excuse me, Madam Bourikos, signing our audit report. We thank the colleague. Mr. President, with your assistance, of course, I think we should raise the following question to the colleagues. Do you approve the financial report? Is there any objection? And can we discharge those responsible from any liability? Mr. Myrianthous, you have something to say on this topic, the financial report? Yes. So you can take the floor. Okay. President of the General Assembly, Secretary General. Can you hear me? Yes. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, President of the General Assembly. Good morning, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. I'm very pleased to see you and hold this meeting, even under such circumstances and such conditions. I'm glad to have this online meeting. So I have two remarks. It's not exactly and purely on the financial results, which I agree with, of course, and I approve. But as a member of the Financial Committee, I would like to raise two topics which we have repeated several times in our General Assemblies. The first topic is the compliance of members concerning the subscriptions, the subscription fees, the contributions. I think this has been raised by the chairperson of the Financial Committee in our last General Assembly, and I would like to repeat it today. Actually, these are issues that are being repeated because there are contributions and dues that are accumulated. So perhaps if we did have those dues collected, we might have our organization be more active. We could take more activities if we had all the dues at our disposal. And one more topic, and I would like to hear the views of the auditors on this. In this fluid and unstable and volatile economic environment of our days throughout the world and in the whole banking sector, I don't know, perhaps it would be wiser it would be more appropriate to have some separation of our cash kept in the bank, just to spread the risk, actually, to face the risk of a potential haircut. Well, in Cyprus, we are very, very sensitive on this because we have suffered a haircut before. But seeing the global banking circumstances, perhaps we should make such a provision.
Thank you, dear colleague. Concerning your second remark, let me say that the money that we have is deposited with the National Bank of Greece, which is the top bank in the country, and therefore it is a guarantee for our deposits. But this is a subject that will be dealt with possibly by the new leadership of the I.A.O, and we can discuss it again sometime in the future. Concerning your first comment on the payment of the paying off by member states is a sine qua non condition for our organization to continue. We don't receive any aid from anywhere else. It is only the contributions of our member parliaments that keep us going. And to the President, with his agreement, subject to his agreement, if there are no objections to the reports, let us consider that the financial report is approved and that those responsible are free of responsibility. Yes, President. Distinguished colleagues, I think that we must unanimously approve the report by our treasurer and Mr. Vyatkin, and approve both the financial report and the audit report. So we consider that they are approved. Mr. Boulaitz, I need to apologize to you, dear colleague, but technical issues can sometimes be annoying. So you have the floor. There is still no sound. Still no sound.
Λοιπόν, προχωράμε.
We shall go on with the election of new bodies for the General Assembly of the I.A.O. The President of our organization, of this assembly, Mr. Sergei Gavrilov, to present the proposal. Excuse me. Let me make a correction. We shall first of all elect the new President of the General Assembly. Dear colleagues, I propose Mr. Sergei Gavrilov, already President of our General Assembly, with a very, very successful mandate to date. I think that he can carry on and renew his mandate as President of the General Assembly. President, do you accept this proposal? Would you accept a second mandate, a re-election as President of the General Assembly? Thank you, Secretary General. I'm grateful to you for your initiative. I hope that I shall be to the height, I shall stand to the height of the requirements. I don't know if there are any objections to this proposal. If not, we consider that the General Assembly has approved. Mr. President, accept my warmest congratulations for your new mandate and a very good level of cooperation with the new Secretary General that will be elected shortly. Now, Mr. President, can you propose the new Secretary General for the General Assembly of the I.A.O.?
Thank you, dear friends. Thank you once again for your trust. And with readiness and mutual support and further success, I'm sure we're going to have further success. My dear friends, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Michailidis, our Secretary General, for his work so far, and allow me to suggest that for this post of the Secretary General, Mr. Maximos Charakopoulos, member of the Greek delegation. We know him very well. We know his past work. We are familiar with his work. He has been active in the Committee for Mass Media. He also defended the interests of Christians recently. He's an experienced legislator and a great patriot, and he's a great representative of the values of Orthodoxy. So, dear friends, please support the candidacy of our colleague, Mr. Maximos Charakopoulos, and I wish to express our support for this nomination. Allow me to ask other colleagues if there is any objection. So the suggestion, the nomination on the part of the President of the General Assembly is Mr. Charakopoulos for the post of the Secretary General. So I'd like to ask Mr. Charakopoulos first whether he accepts the proposal, the nomination. Mr. Charakopoulos, thank you very much. It's a great honor and a great responsibility for me having this trust displayed to me. Okay, then, congratulations. Now we shall proceed with... Mr. Migdalis wants to have the floor. Honorable colleague, honorable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, it is a standard practice in our organization for the outgoing secretariat to suggest to the Assembly the establishment of the other organs, and given that we cannot distribute this list, you will see the list on your screen. You will be able to view this list on your screen. Please have the list uploaded. So, after consultations between the President and the Secretary General of the General Assembly, for each committee, it is only the chairperson and the rapporteur that are nominated, with the exception of the Financial Committee, where the third member is also nominated. So in the next few minutes, you can see it already on your screen. You can view this list. And I'm going to read out this list for you, and you will find out that this nomination, this proposal, includes Mr. Gavrilov as the President of the General Assembly, Mr. Charakopoulos as Secretary General. They have been already elected, appointed. Mr. Andreas Mikhailidis will be the alternate Secretary General. Mr. Stavros Kalafatis will be the treasurer of our organization according to this proposal. Myself, Kostas Migdalis, and Mr. Alexander Fomenko will be the two advisors to the organization. You can view the members of the International Secretariat here. According to this proposal, Mr. Chotric from Serbia, Mr. Seki Kubo from Uganda, Mr. Chikvin from Poland, Sablin from Russia, Angelos Votsis from Cyprus, and Mr. Naguib from Egypt. The Financial Committee. The suggestion, the nomination is Dmitry Vyatkin as the chairperson, Mr. Kalafatis as the rapporteur, and Mr. Myrianthous as a member. For the Committee on Regulation, the chairperson nominated or suggested is Mr. Konstantinou from Cyprus and Mr. Radulescu from Romania. Committee on Human Rights, chairperson Mr. Dule from Albania and Madam Savas from Cyprus. Committee on Culture, Mr. Sukharev from Russia and Mr. Klementiev from Latvia. Committee on International Policy, Mr. Zatulin from Russia and Mr. Kalafatis from Greece. Committee on Mass Media, Mr. Michov from Bulgaria and Madam Natalia Maleus from Estonia. Committee on Social Activity, Family and Motherhood, Mr. Ferzli from Lebanon, and Mr. Sianos from Hungary. Committee on Education, Mr. Simonian, the Vice Speaker of the Parliament of Armenia, and Mr. Novak from Moldova. For the Coordinating Committee for the Collaboration with the Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Davakis, Chairperson, and Mr. Tsepa from Russia. Coordinating Committee for the Cooperation with the Russia-Belarus Union, Mr. Davidko from Belarus, and Mr. Simonov from Kazakhstan. Coordinating Committee for the Cooperation with the Parliamentary Union of the Organization of Islamic Conference Member States, Mr. Iskander from Sudan and Mr. Salama from Palestine. The Monitoring Committee on the Operation of the Observatory on Religious Prosecutions, Mr. Sarakiotis from Greece and Mr. Bulaik from Montenegro. Cooperation Working Group with ICLN, Mr. Christoforou, as member of the European Parliament from Cyprus, and Mr. Athanasios Davakis from Greece, and Mr. Tsepa from Russia. I wish to inform especially new members of Parliament who are participating for the first time. All these years, the proposal prepared by the outgoing Secretariat has always a cyclical character and a geographical allocation of the Secretariat, and also a rotation. We always include a rotation to make sure that all countries go through the Secretariat and to make sure that all countries become members of the committees at some point. So the first meeting, at the first meeting of the Secretariat, all other members of the organization who wish to take part in those committees will be able to declare their willingness before the meeting of the Secretariat. Thank you, President. Thank you, Secretary General.
Thank you. Before giving the floor to the new Secretary General in order to read his program, I would like to say a couple of words on my two mandates as in my quality as Secretary General of the I.A.O. Our General Assembly today has already elected the new bodies of our organization. The political change in July last year in Greece also imposed the position of the head of the national delegation, and I would like, after his appointment, to tell him, to express my warm congratulations on his election and my support in my quality as alternate Secretary General, but also in any other quality that I may have. So my support for his mandate, that I am sure is going to be totally successful and will give new impetus to the I.A.O. And together with the President, Mr. Sergei Gavrilov, that I would like to also congratulate on his new election. So I was there for two mandates, and I was enabled thereof to serve the two fundamental values of our organization: independent parliamentarism on the one hand, and the never-changing values and truths of Orthodoxy in the new world and challenges. Over these years, I've had the chance to meet new outstanding people like you, dear colleagues. I was also given the opportunity to visit unknown countries, unknown to me, and to meet state leaders and church primates, heads. We faced new challenges and we experienced a lot of joy as well. So whenever there were problems, whenever there were issues that had to be dealt with, issues that were a little bit of a headache for us, we always dealt with them by using dialogue and always in respect for the differing opinion of the others, always with in view the unity of our organization. So I would like to express my warm thanks, first of all, to the president, the former president of the organization, Mr. Sergei Popov. I must now say that he was a great teacher to me, because I could see how he managed political issues, difficult ones, and yet he managed to resolve them successfully. So I want to thank him for the years that we shared together in the management of the I.A.O. I would also like to thank warmly the actual president of the I.A.O., Mr. Sergei Gavrilov, a dear friend to me, for the unblemished way he assumed his role. Over the years, we were able to cultivate a sincere relationship of mutual trust and friendship. I want to thank also the speakers of the Hellenic Parliament, the former one, Mr. Voutsis, and the actual speaker, Mr. Tasoulas, for their support to us, to the I.A.O., and also the representatives of the Russian Duma, Mr. Narytkin and Volodin, for the trust that they put in us and for the services they gave to the I.A.O. Warm thanks. I want to extend warm thanks to the services, administrative services of the Hellenic Parliament, the General Directorate of International Affairs. I want to thank the heads of the DG and all of those working for it. I will not mention names with your permission, but I would like once again to stress your help, your support to all our initiatives to date. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. Similarly, I should like to thank the services of the Russian State Duma because their people worked in the same spirit to enable a smooth function of the I.A.O. I want to thank the advisor, Mr. Alexeyev, for his contribution throughout the years, despite the fact that over the last period he wronged his previous service by the stance he adopted of lately, and this is why we had to interrupt our cooperation with him. I want to also thank two invisible but heroic people in the I.A.O, Mrs. Maria Bakali and Mrs. Vartanyan, Lili Vartanyan, who not only work as regular employees, but by giving the best they have of their person and of their mind to the I.A.O. And I want to thank Mr. Goran, Mr. Vangelis Pararas for their services, Mr. Parisis, and finally, last but not least, a very well-known person that is seated next to me. This personality that I need to thank especially for the excellent collaboration. I'm referring to Mr. Migdalis, the advisor, Mr. Migdalis, who is and has been the soul of the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy for the last 27 years. Sometimes we have disagreed, but despite disagreement from time to time, we have a rapport of mutual trust, appreciation, and a very deep friendship. And for all of this, I want to thank you, Kostas, especially. And I want to wish to you that you continue to provide your services for many, many more years to come for the good of the I.A.O. I don't want to say anything more because we are going to be moved to tears if I continue in this manner. I just want to assure the new Secretary General that I shall stand by him on his side and I will do my best to help and support him. Maximos, you have the floor.
Dear President of our General Assembly, my friend Sergei, allow me to congratulate you for your re-election, and I'm really looking forward to fruitful collaboration between us for the benefit of our organization. Your Eminence, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank the outgoing Secretary General, my friend Andreas Michailidis, for everything he has offered to the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy throughout the years. He had been leading this organization in times that have not always been untroubled. But with prudence, tolerance, and wisdom, he has always responded to the challenges. So I thank him, and I'm looking forward to our cooperation. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful for your trust in my person. I wish you to know that I perceive my election, my appointment at the place of the Secretary General of the I.A.O. as a major honor and a major responsibility. I do know, and I'm well aware, that I am taking up the duties of the Secretary General of our organization in a particularly critical period, which is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, and unrest throughout the world. I hope, though, that with the assistance of everyone and with methodical work, with a commitment to our targets and persistence, we will will be able, through our initiatives and activities, to add prestige to the I.A.O., not just on the level of governments and parliaments of countries with a major Orthodox witness, but more generally in the changing world. Undoubtedly, the current situation is very peculiar, with multiple serious challenges, such as the retreat of Christian values from the advanced world, the so-called Christian West, and the replacement of such values by devastating obsessions, and also a risk for disappearance of Christian presence in the birthplace of Christianity, the Middle East, or the desecration of the ecumenical symbol of the Orthodoxy, Hagia Sophia, which was turned to a mosque, and all those other issues that emerge every now and then among churches and many others. So for all these issues, we have the obligation, if we want to be a living organization, we have the obligation to intervene actively and have a constructive presence. And I believe we all agree on this. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, the Interparliamentary Assembly on Orthodoxy these last years, with the contribution of all of us, has managed to be established in the world map as an international institution, and it has managed to have a small and discreet presence and leave its mark, its footprint in the international developments. With the fluctuations, some members withdrawing and other members, new members being integrated, the I.A.O. has made its interventions in vital issues such as intercultural and interfaith dialogue and prosecutions against the Christians in the Middle East. So the I.A.O. has left its footprint as a forum that favors and fosters mutual understanding among peoples, respect for the others, and conciliation. So what we have achieved so far is the springboard for a new period in the activity of our organization. Our goal should be to further enhance and reinforce our institution and have broad and effective interventions, although the staff working for the fulfillment of our goals is, as you know, minimum. And undoubtedly, this is a duty on the shoulders of all of us, all those who believe in our common endeavor and in our common vision. Because although we are politicians coming from different countries and different political parties, we have as our common supply our joint faith in the Trinitary God and Orthodoxy. We share a common cultural heritage as children and grandchildren of the Greek Orthodox Byzantine Empire of Romagna, with a life of more than 1,000 years. And on the basis of this common Orthodox faith and heritage, we have managed to win throughout these years the necessary mutual respect and trust, despite any normal disagreements that might have emerged on specific topics. Let me remind you that as members of the I.A.O., we defend and enhance independent parliamentarism and the values of Christianity and Orthodoxy, which we are trying to formulate and embody in the arena of politics. We work firmly and discreetly for the unity of Orthodoxy, especially in harder times, such as today's times, where Orthodoxy, the unity of Orthodoxy, is being challenged for several reasons. we desire and we promote our collaboration with other Christian churches, seeking to identify common areas of action to defend the values of Christianity and the rights of the Christians. We also explore points of contact with the other two major monotheistic Abrahamic religions, firmly believing in dialogue and peaceful coexistence among peoples. We consider Europe primarily as a cultural area that was built on the basis of specific pillars. One of those pillars is Christianity. And we consider we have the duty to defend the basic European values and build a common future for the entire Europe, from the Atlantic to Vladivostok. And before going on with the planning of our future activities, I would like to come back to the major issue of conversion of Hagia Sophia, but also the Church of the Holy Saviour in Chora in Istanbul, into mosques. These are absolutely unacceptable actions which are not compatible with the pan-human values and the ideals of the mankind in the 21st century, because unfortunately this brings back obscure logics and display as a value the value of conquest. This is a message of intolerance and blind religious fanaticism that offends every civilized human being, and mostly the Orthodox. This is why this arrogance, this hubris, should not go unnoticed or unresponded to. We have to display this issue in our parliaments and international institutions. I should also express my sorrow and surprise over the very weak reaction of governments and leaders, even of Orthodox states, which should have reacted against this barbarism. I hope that the parliaments which express more the feeling of the people compared to the dry geostrategical economic plans of the governments will not stop putting pressure for substantive reaction. On this topic, I would like to put to the discussion the proposal of our colleague from the Committee on Culture, Mr. Sukharev, concerning the historical relation of the Orthodox with the churches of Hagia Sophia, our doxological relation with Sophia, wisdom of God, and our churches honoring Hagia Sophia. So the desecration of the monuments of our Constantinople, Istanbul, show that in this multi-level economic, political, and social crisis, we as a society have the obligation to defend our cultural treasures. Furthermore, as a body of unity of the parliamentary and social expression of the Orthodox, we have the obligation to focus the attention of people to the world of the Orthodox places of history: Jerusalem, St. Catherine and in Sina, Ravenna, the island of Patmos, Lavra in Kiev, Holy Trinity in St. Sergius of Lavra, Sergev Posant in Russia, the Armenian Church of the Holy Cross, the island on Van Lake in Anatolia, or the undercut rock-carved churches in Lalibela, Ethiopia, the historical churches in Kosovo or in the occupied Cyprus. And another topic which has been and should continue to be a priority in our activities is defending the rights of the Christians in the Middle East. Although in the biggest part of Syria, jihadists have been defeated, however, there are still areas, especially those occupied by the Turkish army and its allies, where prosecutions against Christians are being continued uninterruptedly. As we have stressed in the past, in order to have peace in the country and in order for the reconstruction of Syria to begin, all unlawful, illegal armies, all illegal troops have to withdraw, and the country has to be supported economically by the international community. So, to protect the Christians in the birthplace of Christianity and avoid the repetition of genocide against Christians of the Asia Minor as it happened last century, we have decided to establish an institute or center for the presence of Christians in the Middle East. But unfortunately, this proposal has not yet been fulfilled. So I believe that we have to explore every possible option, every alternative. And let me inform you that we have already started contacts with the Athens University on this topic. But of course, we still also have Cyprus in our mind. Recently, the Athens University has established a Center of Excellence, utilization of the Orthodox heritage and inter-religious dialogue. This is a center that aims at highlighting and utilizing the Orthodox heritage to achieve the primary goal of interreligious dialogue. And with this Center of Excellence, which has scientific foundations, we can discuss the idea of the Institute for the Christians of the Middle East. Any collaboration, of course, should aim at establishing a network of universities in our countries. In parallel, we are preparing the publication of the minutes on the conference that was held in 2018 in the suffering Lebanon. The topic of the conference back then was unity in diversity and basic principles of freedom for Christians and Muslims in the Middle East, a conference of parliamentary dialogue. And this will bring back the discussion to the presence of Christians in the broader region of the Middle East. Of course, obviously, in the context of our interventions, we include all the areas where we see prosecutions against the Orthodox, all places where there are problems where we could have a positive intervention. As an example, I could mention Montenegro. Unfortunately, we didn't hear the speech of the colleague from that country. Anyway, in Montenegro, there was a decision of the former government concerning the property of the church, and this has caused a huge wave of reactions and has, of course, affected the result of the elections. Now, concerning the general planning for the future, the pandemics, COVID-19, as you can understand, is cancelling all the certainties we used to have so far and obliges us to adjust to the new reality. We will try to make adjustments, and we hope we manage. I believe we will manage, hoping that this will end soon and we can go back to normality next year. Of course, we cannot limit our activities, we cannot restrict our activities, but we can direct our activities to other initiatives during this period that do not require a physical presence. But we need to make a provision for a physical conference of the International Secretariat and chairpersons and rapporteurs of the committees in winter. Well, an assumption could be that this might happen around end of January. And then we can have the spring secretariat mid-April, because Easter in 2021 is on the 2nd of May. Taking into account, as Mr. Michailidis said before, that we have already paid to Milan €13,000 And we also have paid to create the Hania 28,000 euros concerning the events that were cancelled. I believe that obviously these are the two places where we should hold the next meetings of our International Secretariat. And now, when we come back to normality, we could schedule our General Assembly around end of June next year in Brussels, where the central subject will be the future of the world and the future of Europe after the pandemic, or any other subject if you have other proposals. Anyway, as you can understand, we cannot omit our international obligations, such as our collaboration with the I.A.O, the Pan-African Parliament, the Parliamentary Assembly for the Mediterranean, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Black Sea Economic Collaboration, the International Catholic Legislators Network, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Organization for Safety and Cooperation in Europe, the Parliamentary Union of Islamic States member states, or the Parliamentary Assembly of Russia-Belarus Union. In specific, concerning our relations with the Muslim world, we are already exploring our potential collaboration in the near future with the World Muslim League, which is an international NGO of Islamic collaboration seated in the holy for the Muslims city of Mecca, Saudi Arabia. And in parallel, we could display our own standards of collaboration and peaceful coexistence, our own models of collaboration and peaceful coexistence through the centuries, coexistence between Muslims and Christians, especially in Russia and the city Ufa, because we have been accepting invitations from the local cultural entities. It goes without saying that we also strengthen our relations with the world of Orthodoxy, simple citizens, through initiatives such as the 3 contests that we organized in order to remind people of our traditions and values. Concerning the contest for amateur documentaries titled The Arc Phenomenon and other derivatives of globalization, prospects, impasses, collectivities, phenomena, let me announce that the declaration, the announcement rather of the contest is almost ready. We had a postponement because of the pandemic, but now we are about to start. This is a small addition to the phenomenon of the pandemic as it was experienced by citizens throughout the world. And now allow me a short reference to a major event which is celebrated in our country next year. And this is the 200-year anniversary since 1821, when the Liberation War started, where the Greek Revolution started, the revolution of the Greek people against the Ottoman Empire. And this was the revolution that has brought freedom and has established the independent Greek state. Because this occupation, this slavery, was not just experienced by the Greeks, but it was experienced by other Orthodox peoples and Mount Athos and Orthodox monks from the whole world who live in Mount Athos. So I suggest we delegate a study and publication of a volume titled The Inter-Orthodox Presence of Mount Athos in the years of the Ottoman Empire, 1430-1912. Some of the thematic sections could be organization and institutions, persons, letters, arts, worship, economy, monasteries within and outside the Ottoman Empire. This volume could be enriched with pictures, with photographic documentation, and it could be published in several languages all over the world. This is an idea that we are now being discussing with the Mount Athos Gallery of Simonopetra and Father Justin, and very soon we will give you more detail on this. Dear friends, the planning of future activities that I have just presented is, of course, corresponding to the moments we live and the available options. But I do believe that we do have the necessary flexibility and we can adapt to the needs of our times. The budget accompanying our future activities, as Mr. Kostas Migdalis, our advisor, has informed me, because Mr. Migdalis, I should say, is the institutional memory of the I.A.O., and I'd like to thank him warmly for his precious services. So the budget is based on comparative data from past years and and can, of course, be viewed as valid. And the budget is €597,500. The expenses we incurred this period has been €360, and the annual revenue we have is €475,000. So we do spend a small part of our reserves, but we are covering the credits that we have in Crete and Milan, and for the first time we are budgeting €60,000 for several events. Moreover, the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly have €30,000 at their disposal. So the total amount of €90,000 will be available and disposable once the situation improves for replanning of activities. Finally, and thank God, as we read in the books of the Church, I would like to thank you for your attention and for your honor and trust in my faith. I'm looking forward to your cooperation, advice, suggestions, and remarks. So with the help of God, with persistence and methodic work, all together we will manage. Thank you.
Our advisor, Mr. Migdalis, will refer to the budget that we will have on the screen, so we can have an idea of next year's actions, activities. Let us scroll upwards. You see the budget. We have no other way. Unfortunately, we have tried to be as effective as we can. If you recall, you all had this in front of your eyes, under your eyes. But I want to repeat what the Secretary General said, that we budget for €597,500, whereas what we foresee that we shall be receiving is €530,000. But what needs to be kept in mind, Secretary General said it, and I will repeat it. Well, he told us that we need to envisage the establishment of new teams, either committees or working groups. And as we don't know how things will evolve in respect to the pandemic, we have put the amount of 60,000 euro under miscellaneous activities plus 30,000 for other activities in order precisely to be able to respond to such needs should they arise. Mr. Sukarev wants to say something, and then Mr. Gavrilov will declare the end, the closing of the General Assembly. Okay, the floor to Mr. Sukarev, Ivan Sukarev. You have the floor, Ivan. Thank you, Honorable Secretary General, Honorable President, representatives of the clergy. I should like in the first place to express my gratitude for the trust you put in me. I believe that culture is one of our main activities. I want to congratulate the newly elected, especially Mr. Charakopoulos, and I want to thank all the former members, especially Mr. Michailidis, and wish every possible success to the new members. We will have, unfortunately, to continue holding our meetings remotely on account of the persisting pandemic of the new coronavirus. However, let me tell you that we are going to have the first vaccine against coronavirus in Russia. And we want to hope that this virus is going to subside in order for us to be able to meet each other again in the flesh. I would like to say that the persecutions endured by the Christians and Christianity the world over, Christianism the world over, is a truism, is a reality. There are colleagues that have suffered, like my colleague Rosova last year in Georgia. And the events there coincided not only with the I.A.O. and the General Assembly, but in Georgia there was an attack against Orthodoxy at large. And there was a real attempt to stop us from safeguarding our basic core values. I would like to say, in the first place, our preoccupation, our concern, true concern in respect to the Saint Sophia conversion, and also the change of the status quo of this church that used to be a museum, a church that is located in Turkey, but a church that was built by Emperor Justinian. That fact in itself became the basis for an exhibition for the role of Saint Sophia in Orthodoxy worldwide, and would like to have an album published, and that would be our contribution in the safeguarding of the Christian religion in the world. In the State Duma, we have our committee, and we have approved a draft decision that is an address to now to the authorities in Turkey in regard to the change of the status of the Saint Sophia Church. So this is a very, of course, decisive movement and more crucial, if you will, than the album itself. On Saint Sophia, there are copies everywhere in the world of this album, and we hope that this activity that we have decided to carry out will be crowned with success. And we also organize a yearly festival of Christianity. The title is Hellas, Russia, throughout the centuries. It will take place on the island of Corfu next month, and we shall be focusing on intra-faith relations with other religions, that is, between our religion and Islam. Such a model of good neighboring and long-term collaboration is precisely between Russia and Baskyria, Christians and Muslims. That is where I was born and raised, and this is where I am elected. We could work from closely or from far, but the idea is that this dialogue between Christian and Muslim world is crucial. I think that we need to reinforce open and sincere dialogues, bypassing negative scenarios that we see in our world. In closing, I would like to say that we are being tested by hardships that are sent to us and made stronger. I want to wish good health to all of you. And apart from the strengthening of the committee's work, it is very important, crucial even, to enhance the work that the I.A.O. does in the media. In the mass media, we know that the work is done, but it has to become more obvious, more evident. Thank you. Thank you, dear Ivan Sukharev. Very interesting ideas and proposals. As I said in the program of activities for next year, we have included the idea that you have mentioned on Saint Sophia. We shall go ahead with the publication of this work for Saint Sophia's in the world. And of course, we gladly accept the invitation to Baskyria in order to witness from close up the peaceful coexistence between these two monotheistic religions, Christianity and Islam. Certainly a model, an example to emulate. I want to thank Mr. Chepa and all those who have sent us messages during the proceedings of our General Assembly. And before handing over the floor to Sergei Gavrilov, the President of the General Assembly, who will close this General Assembly, let me say that today we celebrate Saint Hope, Agape, and Sophia. Wisdom. These three virtues will we will follow and in our work. So, dear Sergei, you have the final word.
I hope this is not my last word. Dear colleagues, members of the General Assembly of the I.A.O., I would like to express my thanks to everyone for your active engagement in our work. Dear friends, Dr. Migdalis, I would like to ask the General Assembly to support this situation, to support the proposals read by Dr. Migdalis. I cannot see any objection on this, so we do approve. We do approve the composition of the International Secretariat, as suggested by Mr. Migdalis. I would like to thank all those who have helped us in our work, because we see that we are all together in these strong ideals of our tradition, which is very important in the rapidly changing world. So we have friendly relations of trust and collegiality, and this is very important. I would like to thank all those who have taken part in the organs of the I.A.O., especially Mr. Andreas Michailidis. I would like to thank him warmly because he is a true friend. He is a very determined and a brave man and a brilliant politician. I would also like to thank Mr. Sergei Popov, Mr. Narishkin, Mr. Chiban, who has become the mayor for Chisinau, Osahin Bughalaic from Montenegro, Madam Simanyan from Yerevan. For technical reasons and poor connection, we were not able to hear them speak, but we hope that they will be able to speak live to us. So let me thank Mr. Dimitri Sablin, who has done a lot with his family. Mr. Tsepo, I would like to thank him as well. Great associate in this case for Orthodox unity. And let me mention that we always want to have relations of trust. Of course, the wisdom of Dr. Migdalis is precious. He has always been our assistant in our spiritual aspirations. I would like to thank everyone. Mr. Fomenko, our second advisor, who has just arrived, traveling back from Athens, and we hope that in our upcoming events, we will also have the same success. I wish every success to our future works. Thank you very much. This is the closing of the 27th General Assembly of the I.A.O. Bye.